Hello, everyone. I'm gonna give it a minute to let everything settle down. Yeah, so hi, I'm Tracy. I come from a company called Tradelite Solutions. It's a company that I co-founded in the space actually of financial education. So we created a technology platform with the aim to be able to bring financial data and financial knowledge into more engaging formats. So for example, we are working on a project that is creating a video game to help people learn more about personal finance. And I'm here today because actually, as you can imagine, we're building a video game, and in finance, I also see web3 as a huge revolution and having a lot of impact in the finance, especially personal finance space. So we also want to, first of all, include some web3 crypto as well as the, let's say, blockchain impacts of personal finance into topics that we introduce in our game. And also, we want to bring the game itself into the Web3 environment. However, what I'm here to talk about today is basically our motivation of why we are looking at financial education and why we believe it has a lot of relevance in Web3, even more so than ever. So we all know that Web3 is all about decentralization. It's all about empowering people who participate in this environment to actually have control and ownership, right, of their own assets. And at the end of the day, asset is your finances as well, right? However, what we have seen so far in this space, I think, unfortunately, is the same old story that we hear over and over again in pre-web, web 2, web 1, is that a few entities, right, powerful institutions and entity, and a few powerful people still control almost everything, right, which is such a contradiction to why Web3 exists and why we are passionate about this space. Despite, let's say, all the nice conversations we were having earlier here and all the movements and the projects that's very grassroots, data as well as even benefits, right? The monetary benefits coming out of Web3 still goes to, let's say, some centralized institutions, right? And still goes to a few people, including celebrities these days, right? Because even celebrities that seems to be so close to the people and supporting the communities, once they fuck up everything for us, they're the only ones walking away with the financial benefits. Right, so that's why we think it's really important to think about this balance of power in Web3. And it's not really, in my opinion, a debate about which component is centralized, what is decentralized, but how can we use the different tools that is now created with our technologies to actually create an environment where the impact is that people who are willing and who wants to can have that power, at least to control themselves and their own environments, right? And to, let's say, in the sense to protect what they want to achieve and their own dreams. So these are like some of our inspirations for going into financial education because I think, as the old saying goes, knowledge is power, right? What we often forget is that if you want to have a democracy or a democratized society, actually education is super important, right? Because you cannot have people voting on important topics about their own governance if they're not educated, right? If they're not informed. So it's very clear that knowledge is power, and the same goes for personal finance. Personal finance includes, let's say, your financial literacy is knowledge and ability to make decisions about your own personal finances, but this is not really a topic that is taught to us in school, right? And I mean, I can barely think of any single person in this world today who actually do not need personal finance skills to live, right? Because if you want to achieve your dreams and your targets, that is simply a mean and a lubricant of our society, is money and finance. But this knowledge is not actually publicly shared and given to everyone on an equal basis, right? And then the second thing that we thought of is actually knowledge itself is not enough, right? If you have knowledge, if you have information, you actually need to take actions, right? But taking actions is very risky, right? If you, let's say, now enroll in a money-related, money management or finance class, and now you want to do something to grow your money, you need to take actions. But in our real world today, most of the opportunities to take action actually require you to put your savings, right, into some kind of chance, and then there's a huge risk of maybe losing this money. So people who cannot afford this risk, people who cannot afford these chances, lose out on the possibility to take action, right? And then they lose out of the opportunity to maybe improve themselves and their situations. So then we look at the combination of knowledge and action combined, and again, thinking how can we empower people, right, with combining these two things. So actually we came to the idea of video games, right? Because we look at, first of all, video games is a product that reaches over 3 billion people over the world, regardless of culture, regardless of your geographic as well as socioeconomic background. People love playing games, right? And if we look at like human history, regardless of what kind of state the world was in, right, Dark Ages or Renaissance, people love playing games, right? Because there is this aspect that thrills you, there's the connection, there's the fun, and it triggers, of course, a lot of positive emotions and motivations. So we started studying like how games actually even help people to learn things, right? I don't know how many of you here in the audience plays games. A lot of people say, oh, I'm female, I'm not interested in gaming, I'm not a gamer. But really look on your mobile phone, right? Or look at your childhood, look at your days of studies. How many games have you actually played that help you engage with your family, your friends, or just to like help you relax, right? When you're maybe waiting for the bus to come or sitting in the U-Bahn, you're maybe popping out your phone just to play for a few minutes, right? So being a gamer doesn't mean you have to invest a lot of money and hours every week in front of your big console or PC, right? So any form of playing is actually a game. And now recall like your journey in this playing, right? When you first started, like when you first purchase or open a game or download an app, you have no idea what's going on, right? You see some attractive graphic, and the first thing you do is actually you have to learn. You have to learn the rules of this game. You have to learn what this world is about, what's the story, why am I here, and what do I get from it, right? So this is actually a learning process that is totally natural, right? Because you feel like it's for fun, it's for your benefit, that's clear. So you don't feel like it's a forced education or it's a burden, right? So games actually create such a nice environment for people to learn about something new. And actually, if we look at a lot of the games, the world is extremely complex, right? The world has a whole-blown economy with different assets and different rules of engagement and requirements on you as a person, how to level up, how to get to the next level. But all of this learning comes so natural in a game because you're playing and you're having fun. Right, so this is actually where we think, okay, we can use the same mechanism to actually help people learn more about personal finance. A true inspiration, which I really love to share, is the game Animal Crossing. So it's a Nintendo game, right? And it's this cute game with animals and almost pet-like environment. And all the animals have this responsibility to create a farm, and they're growing crops. But actually, there's even a central bank in Animal Crossing who is setting interest rate that will impact your mortgage rate, your savings rate, your borrowing, and when you trade with other people. And then I read one day, this was I think back in April in 2020, so you know, this deep dark times of COVID, I read in Financial Times, right, and this blew my mind. I read in Financial Times that a rate change executed by Nintendo is causing gamers, is forcing gamers to go into riskier assets, and people are extremely upset, and they feel like their entire financial future has been ruined, right? And I couldn't believe what I was reading. I was like, wait, what kind of world am I living in right now? Like, am I awake? So I started digging into this article and realizing that, first of all, there are 80-some billion people playing live Animal Crossing at that time. Of course, it was during COVID. But there are people of all ages, right? We're talking about 5, 6-year-olds all the way to people in their 70s and 80s. They're all bound by this environment. And it's actually a very simple environment that simulates our existing financial world, right? There is a central bank even. There is a raccoon, by the way, who is the central banker. And the devastation caused by a rate change even impacted very young people who is trying to make their farm a business success. It changed their interest rate on their mortgage, and they're like, oh my God, I can't deal with this, right? I can never recover from this financially. And this is all naturally coming from their enjoyment and playing in this game. Right, so that's a huge inspiration for us on the impact of video games and the engagement that you create. So what we do actually is then we try to bring in like real world data. So instead of making a fake bank and fake rates, we try to bring in real world finances, right? What's the rate now, for example, set by the ECB or by the US Feds? And what is actually the prices of your favorite stocks or favorite crypto in the exchanges? We try to use this information in the game so that when you're playing, you see the real world stuff, you get more familiar with it, but there is no investment required, there's no risk. And then when you walk out of the game into, let's say, a real trading app, you're not so unfamiliar, and that you can maybe recall a little bit, oh, these decision making I took in the game, what was the impact there? So what would be the impact now if I do this with my real money? So it's very, very important to also draw a differentiation between games and gamification. Why is that? So in video games, we always like to say it's got something called the flow, right? I don't know if you know the psychology of game design, but flow is something, it's a state that someone achieves when you balance the skill level as well as the difficulty of the task, right? So if you are creating something to offer people to do, and you take consideration of their skill level as well as the difficulty of the task, people start to go into a mode where they enjoy something so much that they're in the flow, right? They love doing it, and they love the challenge you're giving them, and they're pushing themselves to conquer it and get to the next stage because it feels so good to do something that matches your skill level and accomplish that, right? So this is what like really great game design always take into consideration. Right, so the example I want to give you is that there's a game, a flight simulator game. It's actually a game I think published by Microsoft. And in this game, you see the amazing visual, right, of the cockpit. You see what's going on outside of your cockpit window. You get the feeling that you're flying an airplane, right? And you learn all about the actual realistic detail of a cockpit and what it feels like to go up and down, and also what it feels like when you crash. However, in this game, if you crash, you can start over. You can practice again, you can try to master your skill, and you can redo it. So the material risk of flying is actually not there, right? But in a gamification situation, it's actually adding points and trophies and badges to a real life scenario. So just imagine now you're adding points, trophy, and badges to a real cockpit, right? That is not something you want to do. So that is why we are very much focusing on using games to educate people rather than gamifying a trading experience, for example. So what I mentioned earlier is the shift now from play to learn to earn, right? So we are so truly inspired by actually the Web3 movement, as well as what is now enabled by the derivatives of Web3 technology, right? Such as creating a token for your community, as well as launching NFTs to allow your users and your participants to become also a co-owner and an influencer, as well as almost like someone who is a part of the governance and will share the success of your project, right? And I really don't want to use the word shareholder, because then we're linking everything back to a highly regulated environment, which clearly doesn't seem to benefit most of the people in this world. So what we have been looking at is actually how do we take our engagement to the next level. So we start with the play to earn. We focus on the content. We want to make sure whatever we create is relevant and contextual for our players. However, at one point in time, we also want to be able to introduce the mechanism of learn to earn, so that when you are, let's say, playing, right, increasing your skills and achieving your levels or like winning in the tournaments, then this actual financial skills that you accumulate can even bring you financial gains, right? So it can bring you something that, of course, will have a real world relevance when it comes to monetary value. So I have a background actually in banking and finance, so I'm always thinking more in the traditional sense, right? How can we use these technologies to actually innovate, right? So I think, yes, Web3 here, what we're talking about today is amazing, but Web3 itself is not enough of an innovation for the society, right? Because how is it changing people's lives? How is it a tool that improves how we live, that improves the value for the majority of the people? That I think is more relevant when it comes to innovation. So what I wanted to mention here is how we think of it, this learn to earn and utilization of Web3 is that it creates a new paradigm for retail investment. And what do I mean by a new paradigm is that, let's say traditionally, most of the people, if you want to become a good trader or if you want to actually use financial market investment as a means to increase your personal wealth, you might go learn about it, right? You learn about it through friends, family, you learn about it through the bankers, or you learn about it through online blogs, or even you go take like a masterclass, how to become the best investor. You can be the best student in all these scenarios, but at the end of the day, you gotta go to your bank account, take out your savings, and now you go to the financial market, right? And I don't know how many of you have done in finance trading, but at the end of the day, for a normal retail person, it's kind of like betting, right? Because you don't have actually the access to the same level of information and tools as well as resources and services as institution would, right? So you just kind of follow like, okay, these are the trend, maybe you copy, but at the end of the day, your skills, right? Even though you're the best student, your skills does not equal a successful outcome. It does not equal payout for you in the retail investment market, right? So where we think that by actually connecting financial education with learn to earn changes this paradigm is that when you learn and when you become the best student, actually your effort and your skills will directly link to a financial outcome, right? So this actually puts everyone on a more equal footing, right? This redistributes power, redistribute wealth, because let's say a student from Berlin versus maybe an investment banker from New York, in this world, they are the same, right? It's about proving your own skills, using your own effort, and achieving what you can achieve, and then actually directly be rewarded with that. Right, so this is what we're really excited about, and we're really passionate about how we can connect education and even use the Web3 environment to give value to the people who is actually learning and owning this knowledge. So I don't know if I'm going too fast or too slow here. No clock. Awesome. So actually, this is like my conclusion now, is that you know, the old saying by Benjamin Franklin is that an investment in knowledge pays the best interest. I know it's always been a very abstract thing. You know, it's like, yeah, nice. You know, sure, everyone wants to study and knowledge is important, but we've also seen so many real life cases where, you know, the smartest people, the most knowledgeable people don't actually enjoy the kind of success and benefits they should in life. But again, with connecting learning of financial knowledge with actual financial benefits using Web3 mechanisms, we believe that we can bring everyone closer, right, to this old saying that an investment in your knowledge actually does pay the best interest. Okay, thank you. So yeah, questions from the audience? Anybody? Yes, there is someone. Can I give you the mic? It's actually a bit hard to hear. Ah, thank you so much.
Jesus, why that? Hey, yeah. While microphone was coming to me, I forgot my question. Could you bring back the previous slide, because maybe then it will get back to me. Oh yeah. So you say investment in the knowledge pays the best interest, and I'm wondering, in your product model or in general, like where the money are coming from for somebody to learn and for somebody to get that knowledge. Like who is interested in that?
Thank you. So actually, we have, I would say, three folds in our business model. The first one is because it's a video game. So the first one is a free-to-play gaming business model, right? So that we want people to be able to download the game, access the game for free, so that they can try it out. And also, we will put in advertising content, right? So that if you are not someone who is, let's say, willing to spend any money in the game just yet, like you don't want to get a subscription or you don't want to buy any products, you basically consume the ads, right? So this is, let's say, a proven logic from the gaming world. So we're using this as a first business model. As I mentioned already, there's also the possibility as a user, if you like it and if you find the game engaging, you can buy something and you can pay to make the gaming experience even faster or more engaging, or you can access some premium content through payment. So this is the first part. The second part of our business model is actually business to business. So we actually created some tools for financial education providers or financial media publishers or even financial service providers to be able to use the game to sponsor esports like tournaments. So there's already a lot of institutions, including banks, who are actually spending millions, right, to sponsor sports events or even to sponsor today esports events. So they're basically spending money to connect with young people or people of a different demographic, but by paying them money to encourage them to do, of course, a gaming or sporting activity they love, but have no relevance to the bank's products themselves. And I'm not sure if you're aware, actually, it is regulatory requirement, so it's required by the financial regulators that actually the banks or the licensed financial service provider provide education and knowledge as well as a format of qualification of their users, right? So first of all, it's a consumer protection mechanism, but it's also very beneficial for these financial service providers to create education and provide knowledge to the users, because when we are in a bear market, for example, people are not making wrong decisions and panicking and maybe, withdrawing all their assets and then losing everything. So there's a lot of risk offsetting for the financial education institutions to actually provide education and engagement to their audience. So we created a tool for these businesses to actually use this financial education game to host esports-like tournament. Why do we only allow them to do tournaments? Because we don't want them to give us any requirements so that we change the game, right? Because at the end of the day, you can imagine it becomes very unfun. So there will be sponsors and they use the tool. And of course, there is some kind of partnership as well as payment for us, for them to use it as a service, right? So this is the second business model. But these two business models create fiat money income, right? So the fiat money income from these two business models also pays into, of course, the operations and the growth of the company. And then the third layer would be the token economics on top, right? Where we will be introducing tokens for people to learn to earn. And of course, as you guys all know about tokens, there will be certain sales, right? So for people who are interested in taking a stake in such a token, there will be NFT sales. But where we see ourselves being a more sustainable project and can offer more benefits to our player is that we actually design mechanisms where we use our fiat income to then buy back the token from the market. Right, so that there is actually a direct connection between the non-crypto business models to the benefits someone who will be receiving as a player in the learn-to-earn space, right? So that also that there is, let's say, more injection of cash flow, because we all know you cannot create a token, sell it, and then just keeping it up when there is actually no business model running, which is what happens with a lot of the games. So this is why we have these different verticals. Anybody else? Any questions? Yes, please.
Hello. I'd like to know a bit more from the shift from play to earn. So how can you make the shift? Do you, for example, have features where a good, let's say, player then can become a fund manager or something like that? that he can build up a reputation and then actually use it for collecting real, let's say, money or whatever? Is that? And then the second question would be, you need, at least that's my experience because I'm an ex-banker, you always need connections in the real world that will help you. So do you have a feature that would cover that? You know, help you get the connections? Thank you.
Okay, so the two questions. One is how can someone go from playing themselves to actually also using this game to earn? So yeah, there's the direct learn to earn as an individual, right? But yes, we do have the idea and the concept where because actually when you're playing games that is based on real world knowledge as well as real market information, all your playing track record, right, becomes a part of is your gamer's profile. However, this profile is actually quite representative of your financial skills and knowledge, right? So actually, if someone has reached this very high level of playing levels in our game, they can actually even start to think of themselves maybe as a financial influencer, right? Maybe they have ideas and knowledge that they can share with others. So we also offer financial influencers the possibility to first provide tournaments to their followers, use the game as a space where they can maybe create their own building and start to like provide their blogs or their video content to showcase to the same community. Right? So we do have this possibility for someone as an individual. Then we have this one incoming route, which is achieving really high levels in the game. Then that's a kind of proof to us that you can become a financial influencer. But we already speak with existing financial influencers, so people who are writers, TV presenters, or who are actual licensed financial advisors to bring also their offering into our space. So that leads me to the second part of your question is the real world connection. I mentioned briefly earlier that I have been once upon a time a banker. So actually there's half of our team comes from financial service and fintech, half of our team comes from the gaming industry. And the ones of us who come from the financial service industry, before we started doing this more alternative business, we worked a lot in fintech, in banking as a service and software as a service. So we know quite a lot of financial institutions, as well as trading apps and startups, also the more established ones, right, who's all going through digital transformation these days. So we also speak to them on, because as we know, right, banks are entering Web3. What does that mean? No one really knows. HSBC, JP Morgan spent a lot of money buying land in Sandbox. What are they doing now? We're not quite sure. They're not quite sure either. I know this because I spoke to them. However, what we offer to them then is a possibility to enter into a game-based environment. I'm avoiding the word metaverse because I think there's so many interpretations, and today people just want to see a big empty space where they can run around. So for us, that space itself is not really the focus. We see a lot of opportunity to enter that, but we are offering the opportunity for financial service providers to actually enter into a dedicated gaming environment. This environment is only dedicated to financial literacy. Right? You're not gonna have a random game next door to you as a neighbor. So as a bank, if you come in, you start and let's say any kind of building structure or an island or ship or dungeon, however is the image that you're looking for in our game, you can start to actually bring all the knowledge and asset you have in financial literacy into this more interactive space. And as mentioned, we offer them toolkits to host tournaments for our user or their user. So actually now imagine you're a player in this environment. You enter, oh, this building of a bank, I know about them. What are they doing in my game, right? So I go in and check out, oh, here's actually some material and assets provided to me by my bank to help me improve in this game. Right, here are some Bibles and tips, and it will help me even play this game better and help me advance in this game. And once I reach certain levels, I might now be interested in real product and services. I can participate in a tournament that this XYZ bank is hosting. And if I'm the winner, maybe I can win half a year free access to a premium advisory service provided by this bank, which I normally would not know or have access to maybe as a young person, right? So this is how we try to also create, let's say, a conversion between your gaming experience and your experience in Web3 to something also tangible that you can win or access in the so-called real world. Any other questions? Anybody? Okay, if not, I will, thank you. If not, I hand back to the organizers. Thank you very much for your time.